News Radio 700 WLW.
Jimmy Kimmel last night, I'm sure you've heard by now, pulled off the air by ABC. Jimmy Kimmel isn't a funny man. He's a mean man. His writers weren't very good, and he was just so vitriolic in the way he delivered his monologues, particularly with the attacks on Donald Trump. I think a lot of people just had enough of him, including the affiliates. And those will get you every time in network TV. The affiliates will get you every time. They don't like something you're doing, they'll put on a movie of the week before they'll air somebody like Jimmy Kimmel. So he got suspended, pulled off the air for a comment he made a couple of nights ago about how MAGA really was the force behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The affiliates heard it, didn't like it on top of everything else the guy's been talking about for the last 10 years, and he's off. And I would be surprised if he winds up back on the air. I think this is it. Colbert, gone. He's gone. And then we'll see about Fallon. Fallon's not quite as bad as the other two. But I just think the American public and their taste for what they consume for entertainment, they had enough. They just had enough. Meanwhile, out in Utah, they have already arraigned the alleged shooter of Charlie Kirk. I found a number of things intriguing about his arraignment the other day, and where this has gone since its occurrence almost now exactly a week ago. So I wanted to get on America's attorney. That's what I call Jeremy Rosenthal. This is a guy that knows law inside out. I view him as the Stan Chesley or the F.B. Lee Bailey of his times. And I wanted to get his thoughts on where this case is right now and just what appears to me to be the state of Utah slow-walking the whole thing. So let's get to it. Jeremy Rosenthal, how are you on this glorious Thursday?
Man, I'm delightful. They tell me I'm the F. Lee Bailey of everything south of the Red River, north of Highway 635 in Dallas, west of Central Expressway, and east of the North Dallas Toll Road. That's what they call me.
What is that, a 7-Eleven in Fort Worth? What, is that the plot of land we're talking about?
Close. Look, you don't have to rain on my parade, man, but that's what they call me. That's what they call me.
So I'm looking at this arraignment a couple of days ago of the alleged assassin. And the first thing that struck me was this guy has been in custody for about a week, and he appears at this arraignment, and he has no lawyer. There's nobody representing him. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, his dad was in law enforcement in some capacity. There were others, like a U.S. Marshal, that helped. Wouldn't you think that if you're going to turn yourself in, you'd have some sort of legal representation? Apparently, for the last week, this guy has had none. I found that strange.
Yeah, look, you would think that, right? You would think that you know, alongside of, hey, let's turn you in. You know, by the way, I know a guy. Let's go and kind of get you lawyered up here and protect you at the same time. You would think that that's true. That's an interesting observation. I hadn't heard that yet, but you're right. You would think that there'd be an attorney kind of alongside there. Or at the very least, they would appoint one to him the minute that he gets there to the jail. You know, typically law enforcement's going to take you in. At that point, when he walks in just off the street, he's not in custody. And that's when a trained officer or detective is going to sit down and really grill him and interview him while somebody's running out the back to get an arrest warrant for the guy. But yeah, you would think that would happen, that he would be accompanied by a lawyer, and that's an interesting perspective.
The other thing that strikes me as strange is he hasn't confessed, allegedly, to any law enforcement figures down there in Utah. But he has confessed online and in text messages and whatnot. So this guy, you know, I mean, he's pretty stupid. I mean, for everything that he did and how many lives he disrupted and the movement he tried to stop, the bottom line is this was just another dumb guy that allegedly did something awful. The guy comes off as stupid. If he doesn't, I mean, you're confessing to everyone else in the world. So why wouldn't you think the cops would pick up on that?
It does kind of boggle your mind, really, in some ways, because the crime itself was so planned out, and it was very premeditated. You just don't wake up in the morning and think, you know what, I'm going to go sit on top of the roof and no, he had reconned it. He knew the campus well. He had an entrance and an exit route that he was breathtaking. He put, it looks like the long barrel rifle down his pants and walked up there with a limp. And he's so meticulous in this one regard, and then on the back end of it, pretty thoughtless to think that a lot of your texts and a lot of your communications are just going to go away. That maybe he thought that these people were so close to him, or they would get it and be cool about it or understand, and not have this turned into evidence against him. And even if these people were somehow in agreement with him or in concert with him, the authorities are going to get the messages anyway. They're going to get in that phone, and that just doesn't show a lot of foresight. So that part is also surprising, that on the front end, so meticulous, on the end, so careless.
Yeah. The evidence would seem overwhelming against him, in addition to what we just talked about. They've got the gun. There's DNA on the gun, apparently from, his sweat or whatever. He's walking down a stairwell. There's DNA that he left on the handrail going down the stairs. He left a footprint when he jumped off the roof. My point in all of this, Jeremy, is you've got a lot of evidence that points to him. This would appear to be slam dunk. Now, tell me why a lawyer would come in, maybe someone not as sharp as you, but a lawyer would not come in and work that or reverse engineer that so that evidence wouldn't be so damning to this dude. Would there be a pathway to that?
It's hard to see it right now. The real fight in this case is going to be the death penalty. It's really hard. It's really hard to get somebody sentenced to death, as it should be, right? I think that's shaping up as the real fight. If I'm turning my attention to the guilt-innocence portion of it, I've got to cut out some of the prosecution's evidence. If I'm defending him, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about setting aside potentially. I suspect they had what was called a geofence warrant. A geofence warrant is when they go to AT&T or they go to cell phone providers and they say, "Tell me everybody who was at the ball game last night," and they can do that, or they can try to do that, and that information exists. But the courts have come back and say, no, that's too much of a dragnet. You can't do that because there's a lot of innocent people there whose privacy is being compromised, right? So you're looking to contest things like that, and try to cut out and carve out different parts of the case. You look at the Luigi Mangione case. He was at large for 2-3 days, something like that, until they got him. And one of the really, really big parts of that case is they're trying to get set aside a lot of the evidence that was attained when they first got him at that McDonald's because they didn't follow the procedure correctly. When you have the full weight of the state of Utah and the full weight of the federal government investigating these things and just the sheer dragnet that was thrown out over this case, when you have all of those resources with all this evidence, you got to be able to, if you're defending it, you've got to, any theory that you have has to really begin with you cutting away part of the evidence against him. And those are going to be hard to do. Okay.
Here's something else that intrigued me in this. There is always a pathway, and invariably you hear this in any kind of these high-profile cases, where regardless of if it's true or not, the defendant or his lawyer could go down the path of, well, this guy was mentally incompetent, or he was insane, or he was temporarily insane, or he was delusional in the moment. Is that out the window in this now, considering the fact that it's been over a week, there's been no attorney, would that play still be in play for this alleged assassin in this particular case?
You have to look at it. If you're his lawyer, you are legally ineffective if you're not at least running down that trail. I don't know that it's there. What if I'm defending him, what concerns me the most about an incompetency route is just the degree of planning and the degree of premeditation. That part's hard to explain away. With Mangione, you have a little more to work with there. Because you have a lot of his friends, a lot of his family saying, man, this guy he just fell off the planet. We just never heard from the guy for the last 3 months, the last 6 months. That's not like him. Really, when you're talking about a not guilty by reason of insanity, you have to, the defendant, the theory with not guilty by reason of insanity is that the person could not distinguish right from wrong. And not only, and in the context of that, an example of that would be aliens were attacking me and I had to defend myself against the aliens, or the chip in my brain told me the world is ending in 4 hours. I have to go to Walmart to prepare. And that's why I took $800 worth of things and just took it and walked straight out. So in those instances, it was okay and justifiable because I thought that was my reality. Mangione might have that, probably doesn't. With the premeditation here on Tyler Robinson, really hard to see that taking shape. But if I'm his defense lawyer, I'm certainly running down that angle, and I'm certainly kind of at least exploring that option and seeing if there's something a little more that you can develop there.
You mentioned Mangione a couple of times here, so I want to just jump on that horse just for a second. Yeah. I was shocked that the judge decided he was going to play jury and drop that from a murder one to a second-degree murder charge and throw out terrorism. Was he, as some would explain here in the media, was he really hamstrung? He had no choice because of New York state law? He had to drop that to second-degree murder?
They're always going to say that. Every judge you ever met is, well, I just follow the law. Well, the law is not like the phone book, you know. I mean, it's the law is tricky and it's hard and there's multiple interpretations and it's layered, and you listen to one lawyer and, oh gosh, that guy's right. And then you listen to the next lawyer and that guy's right. It's a little harder than that. Mangione's still facing the federal death penalty. If you're Luigi Mangione, you take your victories where you can get them, right? So he's not going to turn it down for sure, but his legal issues are far from over.
The judge that did the arraignment out in Utah yesterday with the alleged assassin, he seemed a little laid back, and maybe that's just the way life is in the state of Utah. But now there's going to be another hearing on the 29th, and I almost got the feeling watching that the judge is trying to slow walk this thing. Is that typical in murder cases? We're going to have another hearing on the 29th. We're not even getting into it. We're going to set a trial date, let alone have this thing go to trial. What's going on there?
This judge knows he's under the microscope, and this is they're kind of playing with they're sort of doing this with kid gloves. And look, when you have a capital case and you have a case that's this high profile, you got to measure twice, you got to cut once. So him giving everybody all the time that they need in the world is sort of what you would expect a trial judge to do. This case is not business as usual. They've never seen a case come through that has this degree of attention. So they're probably afraid of making a mistake. The court is afraid of you name all the mistakes that are out there, being too lenient, being too harsh, being too swift, being too slow. They're afraid of all of it. So they're really. I think that's probably a good way to characterize it. That it's going to be slow walked. Because I think that I think that bureaucracies and courts are bureaucracies. The one of the things they fear more than anything is criticism and mistakes, and so I think they're doing their best to avoid those.
Okay, yeah, he doesn't want to do anything that would jeopardize the state's case, and then obviously, regardless of how this thing winds up, it will go to appeal. I mean, it's just the way it works. And so those standing and waiting and salivating over the televised execution of this alleged assassin, they're going to be standing and waiting for a long time. These cases can drag out, as you well know, not just months, but years, and in some cases even decades. But the feds really want this thing on a fast pace. And speaking of salivating, they're salivating to get involved in this. Is there any way the feds could get involved in this case? Is there any way they could take what is a state charge and bring it to a federal charge? Or is that is that out of the playbook for Pam Bondi and her group?
I think if they can get involved, I think they will get involved. And that's kind of what I've been waiting to see is, okay, are they going to come in here? Are they going to try to do something? I think one of the biggest challenges, Now, they are involved in the Mangione case. Now, Mangione was also going from one state to another.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy. I have not heard anything other than involvement in the state of Utah so far.
Right.
Hadn't heard it.
Right.
If he's traveling across state lines, then it makes it a lot easier for the feds to get involved. Also, it's sort of the same terrorism type hook, right? If he's trying to incite something that is a larger movement or a broader movement, then I think that the feds might sort of come in. Right now, we haven't heard that, and I think that that's what they're looking for. We haven't seen the manifesto. We haven't seen a declaration like this, like we did with Mangione. And that's not to say it's not out there. We just hadn't heard it yet.
Yeah. Well, listen, we appreciate you carving out some time for us here, Jeremy. Jeremy Rosenthal, America's attorney, someone I think that most sane media outlets would turn to in times of legal questions and trouble. And Jeremy, keep fighting the good fight. And I hope the hell I never need your services, except for these interviews we do here on 700 WLW. Thank you, Jeremy.
Have a great day.